Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and this week I am joined by a new guest. If you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and today I have a good friend of mine on the podcast who will talk all things about growing a company and making it into a successful venture with his brother, which is something I know a little bit about. So excited to talk to him. Without any further ado, would like to welcome to the podcast from ProSkill Plumbing, Heating, and Air, Travis Ringe. Welcome to the podcast, Travis.
Hey, Chad. Good afternoon. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I know it's early afternoon out there in beautiful Phoenix. I was out there not too long ago, and it's beautiful out there. Although it is nice here in the beautiful state of Indiana as well today too. So, well, Travis, to begin, I guess give the audience a little bit of your maybe background into getting into the trade, starting your company, and kind of the to where you are now, just to so they have a frame of reference, and then we'll jump into some questions.
Yeah, sure. So my brother and I started in 2009 the company ProSkill, and basically started out of necessity. I mean, I was in the mortgage industry. My brother was running a plumbing service truck. Our dad, who was a developer and lost everything, always told us to go into home services. And my brother said, "Hey, you know what? Mortgage banking failed with all those subprime loans you were doing." And, I went back to entry level in the retail banking side, doing just a teller, then working into a banker. And I quit, went to work with him. We rode around in a truck for a while, found the company that we were working for sale, and we were the only two employees. And we said, you know what? Maybe we just need to finally just pull the plug and do this ourselves. So got the license for plumbing, started as plumbing, Mario and Luigi, and added air conditioning. That was, very problematic, is that, my brother and I didn't know how to do air conditioning. We thought that we're such great managers, we could just hire people to do it, but that almost bankrupted us. So in 2014 or so, I went to school, learned air conditioning, took over the division, grew it. I was just at Tommy Mello's vertical tract event, and one of the biggest things I would say is that, we always had a phenomenal reputation, phenomenal culture. People wanted to work at the company because we treated people, kindly and fairly, but we didn't always make a whole lot of money. And that was really the problem, is that, we did everything right except what, we were charging. So, we kind of just moved along, mid single digit profits every year. And it's not that we weren't living comfortably, because we were very fortunate to live comfortably, but, always wanted to kind of build the companies that like we saw around us, but didn't want to lose the reputation or the, the culture that we had. So fast forward to like 2019, I met Tom Howard at a Epic event, EGI Epic, and hung out with him all night. He came out, started consulting for us. He did a shop tour because he was trying to figure out, why we weren't making money. And he tells the story better, but he basically came out and was like, yeah, I'm going to tell you everything wrong with your company so you can fix it. Spent the day with me and kind of laughed under his breath. And he said, man, you run a really efficient operation. I think you just need to charge more. And so we did. And on like December 31st of 2019, the way the story goes is my brother never beats me to the shop. He always comes in a little bit later. I'm kind of an early bird. And he showed up, I showed up, and he was there on his computer working away, and, kind of astonished. It's New Year's Eve. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm raising all of our pricing. And I said, dude, no, you know what? You're gonna have to deal with all the problems, all the upset customers. And he raised the pricing across the board 30% that morning, told everybody, hey, prices went up, and download your price books. I'm sure we're all used to saying that with Service Titan now. But so, I kind of was real anxious about it, and nothing ever happened. We got, same closing rates, same amount of positive reviews. possibly even less negative reviews over time because we got into a better clientele. And then in 9 months later, we exited the company for, a price that we never thought was possible, changed our lives. And now we're just, we're still heavily involved in steering that ship. Our partner Service Champions allows us to, really run the company how we want, as long as it's hitting the budget that they give us, which is, very reasonable, which is odd for, what people think would happen with a private equity acquisition. So, yeah, we're just running the business, trying to help other contractors do the same thing, and try to give our advice of, going through the school of hard knocks and seeing what we've been through, and see if we can save some people some of those pain points.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Obviously, a lot to unpack there. One of the things I want to touch on, mainly as it relates to this podcast and leadership and different things like that. You made the comment, I think right around when you were talking about starting HVAC, that, I think you've said it in jest, but, hey, we thought we were great managers, so, hey, we can just hire people. Obviously, in the company that you built, you've had to hire people, and you've learned to become a good manager and a good leader. What were some of those early on things that you maybe learned, or, maybe a little bit different than what you expected, but obviously once you found it, you found your footing and propelled kind of the company forward as it relates to leadership and leading people and so on?
I think one of the biggest things and that I've seen, and I'm a big proponent of, is that people aren't doing a good enough job of building, an appreciative culture. One of the things, my sales and install manager now, younger guy that started as an installer with us, he always said, what I love about this company is that you always thank us. You always, make sure that we know that we're appreciated. And, truth be told, we can do a better job of that now. It's hard to maintain that same culture as you trust more and more people with your people. But, I think just being a leader that, one of the things that I always took away is, from I guess from a Christian standpoint or biblical standpoint, is that, they always said in church that, you want to serve God with fear of disappointing him, or fear of letting him down, not a fear of the repercussions. Right. So, I want to build a culture that people want to do right because we do right by them, not because they're scared they're going to get written up, or not scared that they're going to get fired. So I think, just having more of a building culture is what we strive for throughout the growth. And, that really aided in recruiting, people, having people walk in and say, hey, my friend works here, someone I know works here, or just, it seems like you got a great thing going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's leadership is about inspiring others to do a great job. Not hey, here's your 18-point manual that you need to follow, or else. Not many people respond to that. I wouldn't respond to that. It seems kind of counterproductive to a certain extent.
Yeah, golden rule, man. I always repeat: doing right by people's never done me wrong. And we run our business today still with complete transparency. I'm not afraid to show and share and explain to people why we have to do what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that too is to your point with the price. I mean, if you have to raise the price, not because you want more money, it's because you want to run a healthy organization. In order to keep growing, you've got to make a profit so that you can reinvest, so that, like times like these, I think are so critical of, yeah, I may have to make a bulk purchase of equipment so that I have stuff to put in for people. So if I don't have profit, I don't have the funds to do something like that.
Yeah. And I mean, who wants to work at a job where they go in, punch the clock, and go home? There's, no activities, no, nothing that builds morale up. So, every time that we've had to raise prices, it's for good reason. And we're able to give back more to our employees and our customers and raise the bar and level of service.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was listening to a podcast last week with Gus Antos at a Milestone in Dallas. And he was talking about contractors, typically, a service is made up of two things. It's labor and materials. And materials are going to be hard pressed to find something cheaper tomorrow than you found it today. Now, you may be able to go to a different vendor down the street and find it for $10 less, but it's not going to, drastically influence your pricing. And then labor, he made the joke that, if you can find somebody who is willing to take less next month than this month, then tell me about it because I need to get on that program. But seeing as they probably want to make the same amount of money, the one thing that we have to go to in order to keep up, and again, especially in today's environment when we're receiving 20 and 30% price increases from vendors like they're nothing, is you got to look at your price in order to hold that margin, in order to, continue to move the ball forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Price is it's like, Tommy said, is that, sometimes the team will look at price as such a negative thing, but, we pay a hybrid system of hourly plus performance because it works on both sides, and it's balanced with, customer service reviews on the other side. So that they're really, there's three columns they have to build up in order to hit their bonus tiers. But, every time, Tommy said, every time you have to raise your prices, you got to make it a positive thing. Pull a big meeting together, feed them all, and say, great news, just got to raise. It really is not. It's not the sting that it becomes a sting that it really shouldn't be there, because there's no one's out there trying to take advantage of customers or the situation. But that's where transparency comes in. I don't think our teams always know how fast those price increases are coming in, or where commodities are, and why those things are done. And so that's where I wholeheartedly believe that, we'll share the letters that we get. We'll show them the pricing just to show how we get to these numbers. And I think once you are able to show it and explain it and have the guys believe in it, that sting ultimately goes away.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at, you look at, my brother and I were talking yesterday, and he's like, the milk is like $4 a gallon right now. Like, holy crap. I'm like, well, I don't really, my son's doing formula. We haven't jumped into the milk much, but formula, hell, there's a shortage right now. I imagine the price is going to go up on that. So, everything is, which is kind of a scary proposition, but hey, I think we all just have to, you got to be in tune with the details of your business in order to make sure that you're making the right changes when you need to be profitable. Keep moving.
And how fortunate are we that we get to control our pricing, right? So you brought up milk, and one of my closest friends owns, they're a Dutch family. They've been milking cows since the 1600s, and they own some dairies here in Phoenix, quite a few. And they haven't made money in like the last 5 or 6 years. They're just running at a negative. This is the first year that they're going to make money, and they're all excited about it, which they should be. But, they can't control their pricing. It's controlled by, whatever, Chicago Board of Trade and the commodities index. So, the fact that we have that power to dictate what our price needs to be to run our business it's a great thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Travis, talk to me a little bit. If Tom Howard came into your business and said that you guys are really efficient, there's got to be some things that you were doing really, really well there, because if there's anything that Tom knows, he knows how to run one of these service businesses. What were some of those things that you guys kind of early on, and maybe it's from like your background in kind of the, from outside the industry, that you kind of took a new approach to things that made you guys run so efficiently?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. We never really worked for any sort of service business that had scale. So most of the stuff we did was from our own, brains, and just doing what we thought would work the best. But, starting the business in 2009, obviously bad economy, Great Recession. We did a lot of guerrilla marketing, door knocking. We're on all of the, back in those days, forums up for our local community, always giving out and handing out free advice, trying to be the local experts. And what that did is, dominant market share marketing, or bullseye marketing. We basically got this real deep market share in one small area. And that enabled us to really just dominate that with very little advertising budget. And so once we had that, we started saying, hey, you know what, let's kind of take our ideal customer here that we've built off of this community, and let's go to the next community and do the same thing. And we just slowly expanded out. So during our acquisition and towards the end of 2020, they pull all kinds of different data points. And one of them that stuck out to them is they said, how is your average drive time for technicians, windshield time, 7.5 minutes between jobs? Well, there's a lot of things we do wrong still. We don't dispatch for dollars. We dispatch for efficiency. We are feeling the tech crunch like everyone else, and we don't have enough people. So instead of having them drive all over town, we route them in the most efficient way possible to get as much work done as possible. And, I could definitely see the benefits of doing it the opposite way that, a lot of the large groups would teach. But what we're doing works for us right now. And so we stick with it. But so, yeah, I think just the concentrated marketing really helped us stay very lean. And, like I said, we pay out kind of a hybrid performance pay thing, so that we always want to make sure the customer's well taken care of. So we never want to over incentivize one way, but we don't want our guys to not be able to make the income that they deserve either. So everything in our company, we try to balance. So, we pay a piece rate for our installers, but we QC every job in person with a whole separate department. So they get their install rate, but they can also bonus out. However, they can't get their bonus if they're running a bunch of overtime, because their overtime is removed from their bonus. So, our goal is to, hit our numbers where we want them, and we incentivize our people accordingly.
Yeah, absolutely. So explain that, because I think this is a really good point, especially for some people who are like, well, I live in a small market. I can't, there's only so many people, this, that, and the other. Like, I think people categorize you as Phoenix, but the area that you targeted is not. Explain that a little bit about kind of where you guys were targeting and the area that you were focusing in, because I think that's important. That's an important piece to your guys' really success.
Yeah. So Phoenix is obviously a big market, very sprawling, but there's these little suburbs of Phoenix that, when we started, one of the reasons we started where we were is that no one would come here. It was too far away from Phoenix proper. So we're about 35 minutes north of Phoenix, which, if you've ever been here, we have great freeway systems. That 35 minutes is quite a few miles. It's just we don't have the traffic. So we really were concentrated in an area of about 40,000 people. And I don't know I don't want to misspeak and say the wrong thing, but I know that when Stochastic Marketing did our data full and looked at it in like 2017, 2018, maybe even 2019, because I think Tom was actually the one that introduced us there. So probably 2019. He said that they came back and said, holy moly, we've never seen this before. We warned him up front. We were pretty concentrated into one zip code, but he said that we were like three times the revenue of the best he's ever seen out of one zip code. And, we didn't have that many people in that zip code overall. So I don't think that, I hear the same thing you do all the time. And admittedly, I was one of those people that'll never work in my market. That's why we never raised our prices. We were like, man, we're so concentrated in this area. If we lose the community support, they're going to dump us and we're not going to have any business. But you know what? Every time someone comes on the Facebook groups and the next doors and asks for a recommendation, we have our army of happy customers that get on and refer us. And, even to this day, sometimes we'll get hey, you know what? They're no longer the super cheap guys that do great work, but they still do great work. And, honestly, that means more to me that they see the value than, anyone can sell cheap and good. That's about the easiest proposition ever.
Yeah, absolutely. And I asked you to explain that simply because we've seen a little bit of success, not as well as you guys have done, but in these smaller kind of sub markets, if you will, simply because if you take a very professional approach to the market, even though it's smaller, people are still looking for quality service. Like that's something that there are people out there that are looking for that. And if you can meet that demand, there'll always be a customer base for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's so cyclical, and I followed the same cycle. Maybe you and your brother did too, but my brother and I followed the same cycle. But we went in cheap, not knowing any better, just trying to make a living for our families, and then inevitably you come to this kind of fork in the road of, do you want to be busy all the time and have customers upset because you can't get to them, but not charging enough that you can hire people to let and train them? Or do you want to raise your prices and hire the right people and have the availability to make customers happy? Either way, I mean, there's a customer set for both. It's just that, like you said, in these communities, the large majority are willing to pay a small premium for professionalism, for availability, for quality. And these one-man shows, they come to the same conclusion as we all did, is that I'm either going to be a one-man show for the rest of my life. I'm not going to answer my phone when I'm on the job, and I'm just going to plug away, or I'm going to step it up, get a real brand, hire real people, start a school. And there's just no way that those two can charge the same thing.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, we see it with acquisitions all the time in smaller communities where, like, you talk to the guy and, it's not his fault, but, just hadn't been able to hire people and so on and so forth. And, they're telling people they're like 4 weeks out. Well, if I can be there today, well, then I should be able to charge for being able to be staffed. And like you said, all of the money that goes into hiring enough people to be there next day or same day or whatever that looks like.
And keep them in the off season somehow.
Yeah,
right? Like,
exactly.
there's a cost to that.
Yeah, for sure. Let's dive in a little bit. Obviously, you and your brother kind of, that sounds like, had kind of the technical background, and you kind of had the, I guess you want to call it white collar background or whatever that looks like. But tell me a little bit about, you guys come together to start the company. What did that look like at the beginning? And then maybe how did it transform over the years as you guys, kind of felt each other? I say felt each other out. You guys are brothers. You've known each other for quite a while, but just figured out the relationship with working together.
Yeah. So my brother and I lived in the middle of nowhere growing up. We were the only friends in the neighborhood because there's no neighborhood. So we had done a multitude of things together. My dad was really encouraged us to be entrepreneurial. So, from cleaning horse stalls to selling Chinese dirt bikes and everything in between, landscape curbing, we always worked together. We played sports together. I was always the littler. I'm the younger brother. So he always brought me up to, I was playing, 8 and under soccer as a 6-year-old. And so, we always had stuck together, and I give my parents a lot of credit for that. But my brother is he's a big dreamer, has crazy ideas. And so as we rode around in the truck before we started our company as plumbers for the company we were working for at the time, we had just notebooks full of ideas. And to this day, we still implemented and used some of those ideas. And so that's, we spoke a little bit about that earlier, is not coming from the industry. But as it grew, I really, I despise an upset customer because, it gives me a lot of anxiety and stress. And so I really took the lead culturally of like excellence and great customer service. My brother, being the dreamer that he is, kind of took more control of the marketing and growing the business side. And as my dad always says, we just kind of ham and egged it and learned a lot along the way. I mean, we got through high school, that's it. So no real business background, just watching my dad, run a very, blue collar business growing up. He was the one man shops that never answered his phone, but, so sometimes learning what not to do as well. But my brother, as we were both running a truck up until about 2017. And my brother used to dispatch. So he took all the calls and would dispatch for 8 trucks while running a truck full time. It was, probably one of the most incredible feats I've ever seen, but he did it. And he definitely put in the work early on that was required. And so, yeah, it's what I like to always make sure everyone knows is that, not everybody is a Peterman Brothers or a Eco Plumber or a Next Gen. We were, our lives transitioned very fast. It wasn't that we had this enormous company we've been growing for 20 plus years and had every single thing, T cross and I dotted. We did enough right that allowed us to exit, within 9 months of raising our prices.
Yeah, well, I'd say you did quite a few things. You crossed quite a few T's and dotted quite a few I's on your journey. But I think because I get asked this question all the time. Like, what's it like working with your brother and so on and so forth. And we very similar approach. Kind of two different lanes that we enjoy doing. And I think that's where you either see success or you see really some conflict, and the conflict comes from, people who have they want to do the same exact thing. Whereas, if you can kind of split responsibilities and stay in your own lane. I know my brother and I kind of have an unwritten rule of, he has his decisions he makes, I have mine that I make. If we find each other crossing over into the other, it's a hard stop, and hey, that's your decision to make. I'll trust you with whatever you decide to do, but just let's keep it like that. You can ask for advice, obviously, and help, but you're in charge.
Yeah. I don't, I think you said the right word. I trust my brother with my life, my kids' lives, my wife, I trust him implicitly, and I know that he's always going to do or what's best for us and the company. And so I never doubt that. And you're right. We kind of both stay in our own lanes. We never, a lot of people ask the same thing that you're talking about. Like, how do you work with your brother? Oh, it's really simple. I haven't argued with the guy in 20 years. I mean, we both haven't, like you said, it's kind of an unspoken bond that when one of us knows the other one's passionate about a decision, that there's enough respect there to kind of take a step back and say, well, all right, then that's the decision we'll go with. So, and we've both given our fair share and taken our fair share. And, ultimately we just always work to keep the peace and work together to hit the same goal. Right.
Yep. Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about too. So obviously working with your brother, that trust is somewhat inherent, right? You grew up together, you've done a lot. There's just a lot, built on that relationship. And when I was out at your place, it's been like a year ago or so, I remember, and I cannot remember his name for the life of me, but the guy who was kind of running the show, essentially, is it Garrett?
Garrett, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Good memory sometimes. Yeah. So, okay. So he's running the show. Now, a lot of people, especially as the company's growing and stuff like that, the one thing I see from people is it's very difficult for them to let go of all of like the operation. What was that process like for you, putting him in place, allowing him to run it? I know when we were sitting there, he was literally like just calling the shots, and, we were just, you could definitely tell he was kind of in control. Obviously it was, you guys were making decisions and working on things and so on and so forth, but he was really running that kind of day to day. What was that process like for you, kind of handing that torch, I guess?
Yeah. So Garrett is our third brother, not through blood, but I mean, we've all grown up together. It took us about, 2 or 3 years to finally get him to come work with us. And, so, again, there's that kind of like inherent trust built in. And the thing about Garrett is that we didn't have to hand it to him. Garrett is going to take it. He's very motivated, and he's, so he came in, I think 2013 he came on. So about 4 years into the company being open. So he really grew it, not even with us. It was on his shoulders a lot of the time. He's the one that took my brother's, the dispatch from my brother. And, my brother and I preferred to go interact with customers and run the office at that time. And then we went into sales. But, but through the course of business, we've had to delegate stuff that wasn't to people we grew up with, and we had that bond and trust with already. And, my thing is that I think probably similar to you, similar to most successful entrepreneurs, we always try to surround ourselves with smart people and motivated people. And so, after our acquisition, I guess about 6 months before, I kind of started taking a step back in the sales and install side that I was running. And I had an installer, his name's Drew, and a young guy, a little younger than me. And he just very business minded, very, charismatic. And when I put the position open, he got permission from all the other installers to go and interview for it. And he came in with a plan. He wrote it all out. This is what I want to do. This is where the issues are. Install and sales don't get along well, so I want to mend that relationship, get them working together. And this all started right around when all the equipment shortages started hitting too. So, I mean, I think you gotta. It's hard to hand stuff over at first, but once you see the results that people are able to achieve, it's trust but verify for the start of it. But once you see it, you got to let them run with it. And I mean, we wouldn't be where we were at without Garrett or Drew or any of our management. They're great at what they do. And so, as long as you know that and can admit that there's people smarter and better at your job than you, then you can go far.
Yeah, 100%. And, for me, you can look at sales all day or, installs or revenue, whatever, there's tons of numbers that you can be proud of. But for me, it sounds like for you as well, it's growing a company. It, for me, is more of it's building a platform. It's putting things together so that we can build this system and this product that where people can grow and be successful and take on things that they may have never thought they could. And, to me, it's so satisfying sometimes in an industry where, those opportunities, I don't think were always present. It was, well,
Yeah.
you're a service tech. Well, you're going to be a service tech for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Or, you're an installer. Well, you can be an installer and maybe a install manager, or, it was very limited. And I think that the reason that we're seeing so many companies growing like they are is, because of leaders like yourself who aren't afraid to take, to take a step back and let others kind of take a step forward and show what they can do. And that's how you grow a company, is when you allow people to grow rather than suppress them.
Absolutely. I think Tom Howard mentioned it in his last talk at Vertical Track, but I think Keith Mauricio is the one that actually said it. And it really stuck with me. He said that we have an obligation to grow, because without growth, we don't give our people the opportunity to move up and achieve more. And if that's the case, then they might as well just go start their own business, because they're in a dead-end job. So, I really thought that was a very valid point, is that, if we want to continue to help people, we have to grow our businesses so that they can move up. And, don't just go hire every position. There's high quality people in your organization that, we always tried to, we post all the positions internally first, give everyone a chance to interview that would be interested before we go outside and try to, because they know our culture, they know how we do business. And it's a lot easier to transition that way. A lot of times they know the problems too.
No joke. Yeah. Hey, what is going wrong here? Everyone was afraid to raise their hand. Now I need you to go solve those. But yeah, I mean, I think that is, if there's one thing that as we've kind of, as our talk here has kind of progressed, that I'd want people to take, is just that trust and understanding that in order to grow, growth requires others. And growth requires us to place our trust in others. It's not a us thing. It's not a how many service calls can we run today? How much can we sell today? It's how do we create something where others can be successful, and thus they will grow your company. As you said about, Garrett and, others that have taken roles in the company, it's them who grow the company. It's when we take a step back, or are willing to take a step back, that we actually allow that growth to happen.
It's scary though,
Yeah.
these are they're our babies,
Yep.
we've built them from infancy. So one thing that, once our transaction closed and we had some of our risk pulled off the table, it got so much easier. And so I guess the only takeaway that I would say with that is that, you don't have to wait to exit your business to make your life easier. You can really do it now and put the right people in place. And you're still going to be the leader for culture. You're still going to steer the ship, but, let other people spread their wings too. And don't wait, and don't, people that want to handle everything themselves typically are living a miserable life. And that's why they want to get out of the business. And well, how do I know that? Because that was me. That's why I got out of the business. Now that I see what they're able to achieve, I think I made the best decision for me and my family at that time. And, I'm very fortunate. I always say I feel like I'm one of the luckiest people in the world. However, these people are reaching new heights with the same team that we had, because we've let them, spread their wings and really take control. So you don't have to wait to exit to start living a quality life. You can, let your team build your company and, exit when it's good for you, or make it a lifestyle and cash flow business. There's all kinds of options on the table when you have a solid middle management team.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Travis, as we kind of near the end here, what's something you're working on right now that you think is kind of new and inventive and kind of cutting edge?
I'm looking at other industries,
Yeah.
that one of our partner companies here in Phoenix, and a mentor of mine, Kevin Howard with Howard Air, he always says, I just love to play business. And I thought once I exited the company, or once we, partnered, not exited, but partnered with someone, I would really take a step back and, I want to ever go into work anymore, and this and that. And what I've realized over the last 18 months is that I do enjoy playing business, and I enjoy helping people. I've been part of a number of transactions since mine, to just, for free, just mentoring people, helping them get through the monotony of the transaction, because there's a lot of stuff you learn going through that after is much clearer. But I think there's a lot of opportunity to bring the professionalism that HVAC and plumbing and electrical companies that have had for a while. I think there's a big opportunity to bring that into other home services. And so maybe not cutting edge, but I'm just looking at where we can step the professionalism up in other industries, and, possibly do the same thing there, is that, do some roll-ups and build a little bit bigger companies than those industries are used to seeing.
Yeah. Well, and I'm so glad you shared that, simply because I think it points to what we've talked about this entire time. And that is, to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, your confidence in going into another industry is brought on by the fact that you figured out that the HVAC and plumbing industry is a lot like others in that it's a people business. It's a build a culture, support people, let them spread their wings, let them go do great things. It doesn't matter what you sell. What you sell is very, it is what it is, whether it's a roof or a kitchen remodel or pest control or a water heater, it's all the same. But what's the same is that people have to fulfill that service. They've got to feel supported. They've got to feel like their company is behind them 110%. And I think that's something that we all can learn as it relates to this business or any business that's, home services or whatever, is that ultimately your business is a people business. You've got to figure out that equation first. And then you can take your product and, whatever it may be to new heights, because you have the people to fulfill it. I've never been, so frustrated when it got hot here in Indiana, because we truly have a capacity problem. Like, we can only do so much work. And it's like, we're kind of dead in the water at this point in time. Like, we thought we had enough, but we don't, and we may never. But I think that that's an important takeaway for people, is just to understand why you say that. And I think that points to, who you are as a leader in understanding that piece of it. It's not, well, I've got to stay in this because I know HVAC and plumbing. It doesn't matter what you know about the industry.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's, looking back now in 2013, when we almost went bankrupt adding HVAC, today we probably could hire the right people, because we could put a program together to verify their experience, verify their work. Part of it is technology is helping with that today. We didn't have the technology platforms we did back then to verify work, but and that's one of those things that you learn as you grow a business, is how to be a better leader, how to put the systems and processes in place that you don't have to know everything. I'm not going to go learn how to be a roofer or a painter or a garage door technician, but I am confident that I can create a workplace culture that people will want to work in, and give the processes needed to fulfill the customer's requests. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Travis, I can't thank you enough for spending a little bit of time with us and sharing kind of your story and how you grew your company and the tremendous success that you and your brother have had along with your team there at ProSkill. It was a blast getting out there to see you about a year ago, and obviously, I'm sure we'll see each other here soon in the coming months. Again, audience, I think that there's a ton that you can take away from my talk here today with Travis and kind of his experience and what he did, to really grow the people, which ultimately grew his company. So with that, we'll wrap up the show here today. Again, if you get a chance, leave us a positive review. Jared and I are on our review crusade to continue to gain positive reviews on the podcast so that we can hopefully help those out there looking for a little bit of inspiration. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.